A huge problem that beginners often run into is finding out too late that the product they've invested thousands of dollars into is restricted by Amazon and they can't sell it. In this video, I'm going to go over the different types of restrictions and how you can avoid or overcome them. But first, my name is Crescent, and if this is our first time meeting, welcome to my channel. My passion is sharing tips and strategies on how you can create a successful Amazon FBA private label business. So if you enjoy videos like this, or especially if you've been around my channel, consider subscribing. All right, let's get started. Before jumping in, I want to make one point clear. Just because you found a viable product to sell doesn't mean you can sell it on Amazon. And just because you see other people selling it doesn't mean you're allowed to either. It's important that you understand this. I see this all the time in my community and with my students using the excuse that they didn't know or they see other people selling it, so why can't they? Not understanding the rules and guidelines is not an excuse, especially when you're investing thousands of dollars of your own money. One thing I want to point out is that everything I'm about to cover in this video is readily available online. You can find all the terms of service and guidelines on Amazon's website. It amazes me how often beginners are simply too lazy to read through these when it can dramatically impact their business. I'm not going to cover patents and trademarks in this video. I have several videos on that topic on my channel that you can watch. This video is only going to cover Amazon-related restrictions. Okay, so there are three types of restrictions that you can run into. The first is account restrictions. It's important that before you invest into your first product, that you make sure you're even allowed to create an Amazon seller account. There's few limitations, such as you need to be at least 18 years old, you must live in one of the approved countries on this list, and in order to get your payment disbursements, you must also have a bank from an approved country from this list. You won't be able to sell on Amazon otherwise. I'll leave links in the description to these guidelines. Also, you don't have to have a registered business to sell on Amazon. If you live in the US and plan to sell in the US marketplace, you can create an Amazon account using your social security number. The next type of restriction is category restrictions, otherwise known as gated categories. These categories require approval by Amazon in order for you to sell. The reason these categories are gated is to maintain quality control and to protect the buyer from harmful and counterfeit products. Most gated categories have an instant approval process. You just have to answer some simple questions and agree to some terms and conditions. However, other more strict categories such as jewelry and grocery will require that you provide invoices. Proforma invoices and receipts don't count. They have to be actual invoices showing that you actually purchased the inventory and from a legitimate source. It's not uncommon that you'll need to go through this process of submitting these documents several times before getting approved. Also, be aware that some categories have a non-refundable fee upwards of several hundreds of dollars, regardless if you get approved or not. You also need to have a professional Amazon seller account to get ungated. You can find a list of the gated categories and their requirements to get approval on this page. Take note that some ungated main categories may have gated subcategories. So what I suggest is never purchase any inventory until you've confirmed that you're ungated and allowed to sell in the category you intend to sell in. A side note here is that the toys and games category has a seasonal restriction. It's closed to new sellers during Q4, which is the last 4 months of each year. The last type of restriction is a product restriction. Amazon has strict guidelines on what you can and cannot sell, mostly due to safety and liability or legality. There's products that you outright cannot sell. You can find a list of prohibited products here. You can see that it specifically states that it is your responsibility to know whether the products you are shipping are regulated as hazardous materials. Hazardous materials that are shipped to Amazon fulfillment centers may be subject to disposal without reimbursement. So if you ship prohibited products to Amazon, you may not get them back or reimbursed. Now, with restricted products, you may be able to sell them. You just need to be sure they follow specific guidelines or pre-approval. For example, alcohol is on the prohibited list. However, under the restrictions, pre-approved sellers can sell wine and beer making kits, and products that do not contain alcohol, and you're allowed to sell alcohol-related accessories. The most common issue you'll run into with restricted products is when a product contains hazardous materials, even if it doesn't contain them. Amazon will require you to go through a hazmat review process, and you'll have to submit documentation called an MSDS or just SDS, which is a Materials Safety Data Sheet. You can usually get this from your manufacturer, but be aware that there's no way around this. If you cannot provide the valid documentation, you will not pass the hazmat review and you will not be able to sell the product, period. This is why it's important that you always make sure that you've consulted the product restrictions page and check for any issues before purchasing any inventory. Here's how you can avoid getting yourself in trouble with prohibited or restricted products by finding out ahead of time if there are any restrictions. What you can do is get the ASIN of an existing listing and contact seller support and ask them if the product has any restrictions. A pro tip here is to make sure you're absolutely clear about what the product is by clearly describing it using the main keywords, such as if it's a magnet, has any lithium-ion batteries, or if it's a lock pick set, for example, as sometimes the ASIN itself will not get flagged, but the keywords will. You can also create a temporary product listing and fill out the details for that product. If there's any restrictions, it may pop up at this time. You can also create a shipping plan. Again, if there's any issues, it may pop up. I use the word may because there's times when no issues or restrictions will appear. It's only after you've already been selling when suddenly one day your listing gets shut down. This is when Amazon's algorithm has caught something with your listing and deemed that it requires a hazmat review. Unfortunately, if you've done your due diligence and this happens, there's nothing you can do about it. You'll just have to go through the process and hopefully have it resolved as quickly as possible so you can get back to selling. The process can take up to a week or sometimes longer. Alright, I hope this clears up a few things so you can avoid running into these issues unexpectedly. There should be no reason that you are ever surprised with a restriction. Always do your due diligence. Alright, thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you never miss a video, click that bell icon to turn on notifications. There's also a link in the description to our community forums, which you should totally join. And if you're looking for more tips and strategy videos, click or tap over here. And as always, thanks for watching.